All right. Thank you for coming. I'm Don Blunt. I'm executive editor of the Stockton Record. I'll be your moderator for tonight. To my left has been Irwin, one of our reporters, and to my left and to my right is Clifford Odo, who is our photojournalist. Since you two are running for Stockton Unified School Board in 2 different districts, Kennetha Stevens and Donaire, we're going to do this a little bit differently. In the forums we've had previously, we've had candidates running for the same seat, so we had a bit more back and forth. In this one, we're still going to ask, hopefully, some interesting questions, but we're probably going to have, there's no need for rebuttal since you're not technically going for the same spot, but I think and hope that you'll find still the conversation very interesting. So just for some of the ground rules, we'll both start with opening statements, 2 minutes, and then we go to the Q&A. You'll have 90 seconds to respond. All right, we have this really up-to-date high-tech system so you can keep track of your time. You get to 30 seconds, I'll hold up this card. When you get to 15 seconds left, I'll hold up this one. And then when you're at the end and 90 seconds can go pretty quickly, I'll hold this up. Okay. All right, so since we can just roll right into it, let's get started. Ms. Stevens, opening statements, please.
Sure. Kennetha Stevens, I'm a mother and an advocate for high quality education. I believe every student deserves a future that they dream of. I got into this work just as a mother, wanted to make sure that education was something that students of color and all families in Stockton could be a part of. I think policy and advocacy, they go hand in hand. I've been a part of all aspects. I did a lot of organizing at my school with parents. I've been on the school site council. I've been Parent Volunteer of the Year multiple times. So now I believe it's time for me to make some policy to make sure that our students, staff, and students are moving in the right direction.
Okay. Mr. Donaire.
Hello everyone, my name is Donaire. I'm the candidate for Stockton Unified School Board of Trustee in Area 5. I came into this work as an after-school program educator and a nonprofit youth development leader. For me, I'm hoping to really make sure that, for the Stockton School Board, we bring back the public trust. A lot of the issues that we see on the board right now concerning the grand jury reports with the fiscal mismanagement, the dysfunction, a lot of it is affecting the work of teachers, staff, and it's mostly affecting the students as well. So for me, I'm running on 3 issues that I hope to address if I get elected. The first one is budget transparency and accountability. That is to reverse the growing deficit in the budget. The second is school campus security and safety, making sure our school site emergency coordination and plans are updated and in compliance with state standards. I'm also hoping, lastly, to work on college, career, and community readiness, making sure our students are graduating at higher rates, getting them ready for college through A through G course requirements, and also getting them ready for vocation jobs and ready outside of work and school, getting them prepared to be involved civically in the city and making sure that our city of Stockton is a place that they want to stay and they want to contribute to, and make a place where it's a place where they do more than survive and a place where they thrive.
All right. Mr. Donaire, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yes, you are.
Well, we will start with you then. What do you think of the grand jury report?
Firstly, I think it's appalling. It brings a lot of embarrassment to the district, mostly because for Stockton Unified, it is one of the largest school districts in the Central Valley in California. And for them to drop the ball when it comes to making sure that funds are being managed properly, reported properly, especially during the pandemic, is very embarrassing. There's about $240 million coming in federally from COVID relief funds to make sure that students are getting the resources that they need to overcome the learning loss and to catch up on the achievement gap that a lot of them have faced. There are already a lot of issues regarding unfairness and inequity that students were getting when it comes to test scores, when it comes to making sure that they are graduating on time. A lot of those issues were already present within the school district, and it got exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. So those $1 million of funds were supposed to help them catch up, help them get back into the classrooms. So I'm really hoping that with the grand jury report recommendations, I can implement a lot of those recommendations so that we can reverse the $30 million deficit that we're heading towards.
Okay. All right, thank you. And Ms. Stevens, what do you think about, or if you're elected, what would you, how do you think, tell me what you think about accountability and town halls and being held accountable through town halls with residents?
Sure, so I think it's important. I think it's important to bring back transparency. I think transparency opens the door for us to build relationships. I think we haven't seen town halls in quite a long time. I think it's been some years, probably since I was a parent. It's probably the last time we've seen town halls specifically around the budget. I think our families and community, they don't know about the budget. There's been a lot of ESSER funds that were put forth. Our parents have not been provided an opportunity to make plans to ensure that their students are learning. So I think we need town halls. I think they're part of my platform to move forward. I want to make sure that our parents have a say, our students have a say, and also our staff have a say in how we're moving in the district, and we haven't seen that in a long time. It also shows how the current board has actually dropped the ball on leadership. That's part of their responsibility, is to make sure that we all understand and know what's happening with the budget, and we have not seen that. Specifically with COVID, it would have given us the opportunity to have hybrid meetings for families, for those who could not come. We could have highlighted those on Zoom, also some of the Go meeting calls. We haven't done that. We could have also provided translation for families to engage around the budget, and our current leadership hasn't done that, and ultimately they've slapped our families in the face by not giving them the opportunity to see what's happening at the district level.
Mr. Donaire, you mentioned transparency. How has the current board not been transparent, and what would you do to change that?
I think the most recent example that I'm thinking about is when they made the decision to give the contract for former Superintendent Ramirez. That was behind closed doors at a closed session meeting. That decision should have been made in the public, where community, parents, teachers would be able to make a public comment on how they feel about giving this former staff a contract that would pay him out even after his duties are no longer. So just in terms of that example, making sure that when Board of Trustee members do make decisions that cost a lot of money and take resources from the district, we want to make sure that the public is involved. Again, I'm about transparency and accountability. The work that I've done has been mostly working with Stockton students and parents, so making sure that they're at the center of these conversations when it comes to these big decisions that are being made. Yeah, I'll end it there.
I want to follow up with you. As one voice on the board out of 7. Did I do the math right?
That's right.
7. What would give you the juice to be able to open these things up as you would hope to? To become more transparent, to do these things. You're only one voice, 1/7 of others.
Right.
What can you as one person do to really create more transparency?
I think for me, the base is to build those relationships, build the trust within my own school area. So I have 7 schools, including Cleveland, Weber Institute, Cleveland, Weber Institute, SECA, Stockton High, Washington, Hazleton, Wilson. These are kind of the base schools.
Okay, now give me the list backwards.
So I'm hoping to really build the relationships within these schools. The work that I've done as a nonprofit program director and community organizer, I've done a lot in terms of building my skills to make these relationships. I have a lot of relationships with teachers, students, and community leaders who support students in their academic achievement. So I'm hoping to continue with those relationship and trust building that I've done. I've been supported in my campaign, the Stockton Teachers Association, the California Schools Employment Association, so just making sure that there's a clear communication line between these teachers union, these employees union, the labor unions that I've been endorsed by, and making sure that their voice matters and is counted in. I'm only one person, but I'm hoping to represent the best I can and advocate for the community members who I represent.
Okay. Thank you. This question is going to be for both of you. We'll start with you, Ms. Stevens. The revolving door of superintendents. What can be done to stop that? And the second part of that question is going to be a decision on the next superintendent has been delayed. So what can the board do or should be done, and should there be more community involvement in the selection of a new superintendent? So two parts there.
Sure, no, so actually, that's a great question. I think part of hiring a superintendent is making sure that you do have community engagement. I believe it's important to hire a headhunter who could begin the process for Stockton Unified. I think we need to look at candidates both in the district and outside of the district. I think parents need their own meetings to really talk about what they believe is going to be an effective superintendent. We need someone who can first build a cabinet, also who has the skill set to improve our district. Here in Stockton Unified, it has to be someone who understands the data. I would really love to see someone who's been superintendent before, who has some know-how to really make it happen here in the district. I think they have to be someone who can go out into the community and build relationships with all of our families across the board. We also need someone who is student-focused, who can really look at data and drive it forward. I know with the current superintendents we haven't had that particular process, but I would love to see parents and community stakeholders a part of that. If I'm elected as board trustee, I'll make sure that all of those happen. I want to make sure that a superintendent has the opportunity to really build something here strong. We haven't had anybody really go the 3-year mark. So I think part of the board's process is to make sure they're able to evaluate properly, and we haven't seen the evaluation of superintendents happen here in Stockton Unified to get us someone that's strong and who could last.
Sounds a little bit like you just named former Superintendent John Dacey. Data-driven, student-oriented, community-focused. Gone a few years now.
Take it you're a fan.
Pardon?
I said, take it you're a fan.
I'm not a fan. I'm just listing characteristics. That's all. I'm totally objective here, actually. Mr. Donaire, same question about superintendents and stopping the revolving door and community involvement in selecting a superintendent.
For me, the community, the public needs to be involved when it comes to, vetting superintendent choices. The meetings, there needs to be meetings, town halls, that allow for the public to participate in sharing their voice. And making sure that these town halls are accessible to a lot of the families who care about who comes next in being the superintendent. So making sure that these town halls and meetings are at times where it's not normal business hours. So it needs to be after school, maybe it could be early mornings, and there needs to be a lot of other accessible measures when it comes to these town halls, including language translation, for Spanish speakers. Having it both in person and on Zoom would be really accessible. So the point I'm making is it needs to be easy for people to participate in these town hall meetings. As far as I know, when it comes to superintendents with this revolving door, the last time superintendent who has stayed more than 5 years is in the 90s. And I think a big part of that is because well, I don't know. Students and parents just need to be involved with, making sure that the next superintendent is someone who's going to stay even when stuff hits the fan.
All right, Ms. Stevens, you both mentioned Zoom. Zoom meetings, Zoom board meetings, interviews. How do you make that happen? I mean, again, one of 7. How do you make that happen?
Sure.
And why?
Yeah, so I think we have lots of families who want to become engaged. A lot of our families have language barriers. Some of our families, they're commuting. I think giving them the opportunity to ride home and listen to the Zoom call. I think giving our families the opportunity to have meetings in a language that's supportive of them is extremely important. As a mother, I've been engaged in education. I know that it's not just about parents sitting in a seat, but it's about giving them opportunities to expand and think with the district, and we haven't done that. I think Zoom does give our families the opportunity. I think our board meetings should also happen the same way. I've seen other districts, that's how they do theirs. I think it also encourages families to want to hear what's happening at the district. I think having it just in person, it stifles a lot of parents from being able to come out and support and hear what's actually happening at the district level. So I think Zoom is a great opportunity. COVID showed us that our kids were learning on Zoom. A lot of our families became introduced not just because of education, but also because of work. A lot of our families were on Zoom meetings all the time because of work. I believe if we want more community engagement, if we really want to build our stakeholders and also allies, I think we have to make sure that we have multiple opportunities for families to engage.
Okay. Mr. Donaire, same question.
I think with Zoom, I think it's easier for the community and the public to sign in on Zoom from their homes, from wherever they are, and be included in that way. I also think it's useful that the Zoom meetings are recorded so that if they can't show up in real time, that they can go back and listen and review what has been said in these meetings and follow along with the board meeting agendas. I've just excuse me. In the past, I went into one of the SUSD district meetings. I think it was regarding the English Learners Advisory Committee. This was a meeting that was mostly for Spanish-speaking families, parents. I think there was a barrier when it came to making sure that both languages are present, especially because it was their first time doing a hybrid in Zoom. I had offered or suggested to them in my public comment that it would be useful to use the language interpretation feature on the Zoom so that it's not overlaid onto each other and it's really difficult. So just making sure that there's different channels for people to understand what's going on. So just making sure that these recordings are also posted on time. I think it's very useful that the school board meetings right now is posting it on YouTube. It's a very accessible app, so thank you.
What are the 3 best assets you would bring as a trustee?
For me, I think I'm very answerable to the public and community. I'm all about the relationships and building trust with people. That's the work that I do right now when it comes to helping people in their immigration cases and helping students and families build their capacity to come into these board meetings, to come into different civic engagement meetings, to get them involved civically. So just making sure that people are coming in together and feeling empowered to make a change is one of my biggest assets. Secondly, I think I am very passionate when it comes to education equity and seeing what resources, what programs do we need to ensure that students are succeeding. And I also think that lastly, that I am someone who's easy to work with. I'm very transparent. If I do make a mistake, I'm always going to find a way to amend that relationship, and making sure that whatever work needs to be done, it's not taken seriously or personally, and that the work of making sure that students are succeeding is at the forefront.
Ms. Stevens, same question.
Sure. This is actually a great question. I think first I am student and family focused. I think it's important to have my feet on the ground when it comes to understanding families, students, and the needs. I think the second piece is that I'm transparent. I want to have conversations, an opportunity to develop our families into stakeholders. And the last piece, I have experience, so I've served on multiple boards before. I'm a former employee for Stockton Unified. I actually ran a full department. I understand policy and budgeting. I'm a person, I understand that there's no permanent enemy, no permanent ally. I think sometimes you have to work with people in order to get the job done. Understanding policy means going into the trenches, making sure that all of our students have an education that supports them across the board. And I think making sure that stakeholders are a part of the work that we do at Stockton Unified. I think we need allies. No one person can do all the work themselves, so I believe in making sure that we have partners at the table who can help us lift up the work and pull our families out of poverty.
Okay. Now, in your race, your opponent, I guess, you and Mr. Avalar have not appeared in the same venue. You have not debated, correct?
I don't believe he's appeared in any venues.
Okay. Well, let's that analogy won't work. Nobody will remember it. But let's just say he was here.
Mm-hmm.
If he was here and you were talking to him, what would you tell him? What would you say?
Sure, I would let him know that he's dropped the ball for our families. I think in my conversations with district employees, they've often tell me they've never seen him. He hasn't shown up to the school. He doesn't vote with understanding around board policy. We can look at the grand jury report and see how he's failed our students, families, and staff. We can look at the safety issues at Stagg High School. We can talk about how he dropped the ball there. I think he's been an ineffective leader. I think it takes more than someone just wanting to have a seat, but it takes understanding policy, making sure that we understand board agenda items before we approve them, and I think we have to understand what's happening within the district, looking at our business department, looking at our superintendent, and making sure that the district is running with efficacy, and I don't think that's happening right now. And I would say that is part of his role is to lift up that work, and as a mother and a community member and a stakeholder, I haven't seen that engagement from him at any level. And just to add a little bit to that, I would even say showing up to these candidates forums, that should be a place where he should show up. He's someone that is supposed to have knowledge and integrity to make that happen. And I think when we look at these forums, we don't see him in the room at all, specifically discussing what he's going to do for our students here in Stockton Unified.
What boards have you served on?
Sure, sure. So the Community Advisory Board for the Police Department, NAACP, I'm actually their education chair. I've been a part of the League of Women Voters and also the Children's Museum of Stockton. Okay.
Mr. Donaire, what boards have you served on? What's your experience?
For me, I am currently, I'm employed by APSARA, who is the fiscal sponsor for my community organization that I started in 2017. It's called Empowering Marginalized Asian Communities. I was initially a board member and a youth empowerment coordinator for that organization. In the past, I've also been a part of SURF, which is the Stockton Urban Revitalization Fellowship. This was a program that was intended for students, youth to come back into Stockton after leaving for college and making sure that they are being connected into the collective impact community and nonprofit community to make sure that Stockton becomes a place where young folks do want to come back. I've also been a member, or I am a member for a group called SEEK, which is the Stockton Education Equity Coalition, where we follow up with the implementation of the Department of Justice when it comes to making sure that the SUSD, Public Safety and Police Department are being held accountable to that investigation where it found that students of color, black, brown, and students with disabilities are being over-disciplined, and making sure that those trainings are equitable. Thank you.
Boy, a lot of stuff there to unpack. Let's start with, we'll start with you, Ms. Stevens. One thing that you mentioned about getting students to come back. One of the things that I've heard in the community from business leaders and others is that Stockton Unified is an issue for employers looking to locate businesses, that it's an issue when it came to trying to bring a CSU to Stockton, and that overall it's becoming something that's really impacting people, because people look at, you know, this 40,000 student district and they go, oh boy, they have their issues, don't want to go there, I'm going to go somewhere else. What can be done collectively to stop that, to make it so that when someone is looking at a Stockton Unified School, they see something that would be attractive to them? Ms. Stevens?
Yeah, sure. So I believe starting with data, I think data is extremely important. You have low graduation rates, we're at about 78%. People don't want to come there. If you are an engaged parent, you look at schools which are higher performing, and parents usually jump to the schools that are not in their neighborhood, but they are the ones that have the test scores. Students have the grades. So I think it's important to make sure that we build our schools up, that our students are excelling across the board. I think another piece is having positive stories. We don't usually hear positive stories about Stockton Unified Schools. Usually if you do see a story or an article, whether it's in the newspaper or on social media, it is because something negative has happened at that particular school. I think making sure that we put some of those positive stories out there, talking about our students excelling, lifting up our teachers, that's another issue. We want to make sure that there is a culture that people want to come to. I think that's problematic when you have the majority of our families and our staff being talked about in the media. No one wants to come here. When we think about businesses, when we look at green jobs, we're not getting our fair shake because of what the data looks like here in Stockton. So I think building up that data, as a trustee, we need to make sure that our schools are excelling and performing at high levels. I want to make sure that my schools are schools that are competitive. I want our families to look at our schools and say, that's a place where I want to send my students. I also want to make sure that we have relationships so that our families know the principals. I think anytime a family is picking a school, you pick a school where you're going to have relationships and where the students are known by their principal.
Mr. Donaire, same question.
I agree with Kennetha when it comes to making sure that the narrative of Stockton changes. I think a lot of youth and families see and hear about all the negative news that comes out of social media platforms, news, articles. A lot of times, for me as a young person growing up, I've experienced and seen poverty. I've seen or I can experience food and housing insecurity. A lot of these things are part of my story, but I know leaving Stockton and going to college, that was something I was overcoming, but I wanted to come back because of the momentum that a lot of young people were bringing into the city of Stockton, and making sure that Stockton is a place that we want to come home to and contribute to. I was part of the Stockton Schools Initiative that was really pushing for a CSU Stockton and being a part of those conversations. I was the higher education coordinator, student coordinator, and making sure that these students are included in these conversations. When the Lieutenant Governor Kunalakis came to Stockton and to see if a CSU Stockton was a place that can happen. So I think it really starts with both the city leadership, school district leadership, and also the community, the parents, the youth, really believing that the place here in Stockton, where we call home, is a place that can actually thrive. There's so many good things that is coming out of Stockton, including creative people, small business owners, organizers, leaders. These are all people who want to see Stockton become a better place and want to see Stockton be a place where families can be raised.
Does Stockton Unified get a bad rap?
Yes.
Why?
As of recent, with the grand jury reports, with the way that board meetings have been going, with trustees kind of yelling at each other and talking over each other, there's a lot of dysfunction. I think there is a lack of respect for people, and a lack of respect for teachers and parents who are trying to hold the Board of Trustees accountable for for the decisions that they made and the policies that they pushed. And I think even before then, historically, families and students have always been kind of viewed in a deficit way, where they're always lacking, they're not participating enough. These parents are just trying to get by in Stockton and trying to make it work. So I think it goes back to just this belief that Stockton can be a better place. And so when it comes to the Board of Trustees, they also need to believe that whatever actions and behaviors they're putting out there, that is a reflection of them, and they need to be better role models for the students. There's a lot of bullying that happens in the school board district meetings, and they need to see that students, parents, and community members are also saying that, and that needs to stop.
Okay. I want to follow up real quick with one thing. You said, yes, Stockton is getting a bad rap. And then if I heard correctly, you listed a number of issues that have come up from like the board dysfunction. By bad rap, I mean, do you think that Stockton Unified, that the image that's being presented to others looking in is undeserved?
Sorry, can you elaborate?
Sure, of course. When I asked if Stockton had a bad rap, I meant sort of like misunderstood. Mm-hmm. That there's things going on there so that the negative image that some of it that is getting portrayed isn't deserved.
Right.
Yeah, you listed board dysfunction and some other things
mm-hmm.
that sort of buttress the idea that what we see is what we get. So I'm just asking you to elaborate on that, if Stockton Unified is getting a bad rap, or if the image that Stockton Unified has is deserved.
I don't think it's deserved. I think there are a lot of students and families who see Stockton as their home. When people look into Stockton and they're not from here, or they live outside of Stockton, it's always negative comments. I would say in the larger imaginary, I think it's compared a lot to places like Oakland, places that have majority students, families of color. And I think that is rooted in a deep sense of racism. I think, yeah.
Okay, all right, oh boy, we're going down a rabbit hole then. Okay, a deep sense of racism based on
seeing that places like Oakland and Stockton are majority people of color and low-income people.
Okay. Well, we have two negative grand jury reports. We have both of you saying that the board needs to be more transparent. We have a revolving door superintendents. So help me out here. Is all that happening because people are racist, or is there something else going on here?
I think for a long time, there were policies that didn't see these families as valuable voices in making sure that whatever issues that they brought up, it wasn't being listened to. And I think this is kind of the boiling point of students, families, community members, the public coming and saying, hey, you haven't been listening to us for a really long time, and now we are at a place where you've discounted the public's voice for so long that we're kind of in this mess now.
Okay. All right, Ms. Stevens?
Same question?
Yes.
So I'm going to agree. I think that there's a lot of great attributes of the district. I don't think the district is the sum of just the behavior of the board member or the revolving door of the superintendent. I think that goes back to the narrative that I spoke about earlier, is that, so we don't hear the great things about the district. Do we need improvement? Yes, we do. We need improvement. Do we need a new board, a new leadership, a new direction? 100% we do. I think a lot of the narrative that we have, it does come down to the behavior of the board. When your leadership doesn't act accordingly, if they're not following policy and bylaws, that trickles down to staff and to others. So do we get a bad rep? I would say yes, we do. I don't think the district is a sum of just the behavior of the board. But do we need support? Do we need more for our students? We 100%, we need more. Could we be in a better place? Yes, 100% we could be.
Okay, well, what if we expand a little bit beyond the board and look at either test scores or student achievement or, I don't know, academic funding? By those accounts, is the district succeeding?
I would say no. No, when it comes to test scores and data, we're not. If we look at where funding is, what happened with funding, if we look at ESSER funds, if we think about LCAP funds, where the majority of the money is going to, how it's being shifted across the board, then yeah, so we need some help in those areas. That is 100% true.
Okay.
And I don't disagree, yes.
Okay, so not to discount that there are some happy stories in SUSD. You just listed off that test scores are not meeting standards. There are problems financially within this district. We have a revolving door of superintendents. We have dysfunction on the board, your words, not mine. Yet the district, you both are standing by that the district is getting a bad rap.
Sure, so I think we have students, I can name off lots of students who've gone through Stockton Unified Schools.
Well, hold on, I said, no, I did say that there are success stories.
Oh, okay, I was gonna give you some.
I did say there are success stories,
Right.
but I just listed off those important things: funding, board, superintendents, student achievement. And yet, you're both maintaining that SUSD is getting a bad, and school safety I could throw in there also. Yet you both are maintaining that the district gets a bad rap.
So sure, so I think there are some great things that happen. I think those narratives are not shared. Is every student in Stockton Unified underperforming? They're not. Is the graduation rate only 78%? It is, but we also didn't hear stories when it was higher either. We heard stories when Stockton was defined as a dropout factory. However, when the graduation rates were improved, we didn't see stories coming out about that. I think we should have. We should talk about our STEM programs. We should talk about the investments that are being made to Stockton Unified. Do we need more? I'm not disagreeing with you. We 100%, we need more.
Mrs. Donaire?
Can you repeat the question?
Well, we're just still discussing a little bit whether or not the district gets a bad rap. And what I pointed out was that you both mentioned board dysfunction, revolving door superintendents, lower academic achievement of students, and school safety, which I threw in there. And I said there are some success stories within the district. Obviously, you have bright kids that go on to do things. Yet you're both maintaining that the district is getting a bad rap despite those 4 or 5 things that I just listed.
Why?
Why? Is it getting a bad rap?
Why are you maintaining that notion despite all these things that have been listed that you guys have listed that are not going well in the district?
I think, as I understand it now, the Board of Trustees, majority of them are pretending that these things aren't happening, that they're not in a good place. Despite seeing the grand jury report themselves, a lot of them disagree with the recommendations. For me, I think the bad rap comes from the leadership. I think it's one of the first things that is being looked at when it comes to people looking into the district and seeing the news stories. They see that the leadership is bickering and disagreeing and doing all these things, and because of that, I think it's getting a bad rap, and it's not being paid attention enough. you know, the good things that are happening, the teachers, the students who are trying to make it work.
Okay, all right. So you're basically saying that because the good stories aren't coming out enough or being overshadowed by all these other things, including student achievement, test scores, that the district's getting a bad rap because of those things, because those things are overshadowing everything else.
No, I'm not saying that we don't need it. We 100% we need improvement. When you have a revolving door, when you have leadership at the board level that doesn't govern itself accordingly, that's what we're going to get. We're going to get a revolving door. We're going to get low test scores. If we don't have anyone managing the checks and balances, then yes, that's exactly what we're going to get. You can't change it if you don't have a team that's willing to make it happen. So when you have a board that's telling us that the recommendations from the grand jury report they don't agree with, that's extremely problematic. When we look at the West Ed report, when you have a board member that's saying that it's problematic, that's an issue. Our schools do need better, and part of that is because we have leadership that's not making it happen. We have leaders who are lining their pockets, they're bickering with each other instead of making sure they understand the policies that should be voted on, making sure that they understand where LCAP money is going to, making sure that they have curriculum that's student focused, making sure that they have professional development that's suiting the teachers across the board. So I think we're getting exactly what our board is putting into our students and back into our community. And when we have a superintendent only for 2 years, no, we can't see data improvement because we don't have the continuity to say, okay, this is what we're doing. And if we get a new superintendent, new change comes. A new group comes in, and then we have new policies time and time again. So we need continuity. We need a board that understands policy and understands data in order to make sure that our students are succeeding. So we're in dysfunction. Honestly, we are. It's chaos. And it's chaos for our students who go to school every day. They're not reaping the benefits of the funding that's being put forth. The ESSER funds are not. They're not.
Well, given that you just used the term dysfunction and chaos, is the district getting a bad rap? Is the public perception of Stockton Unified inaccurate? You just used the words dysfunction and chaos.
Right, and I think there's a lot that goes into that. But I'm also thinking, would you like me to say yes?
I want you to say what you think.
So I did.
I'm just gonna keep asking you because you keep every time I ask a question, you are bringing something else out. Not me. I didn't use dysfunction. I didn't use chaos. You just did.
No, I'm agreeing. We need change. I 100% need change. And I maintain my statement, if that works.
But you're maintaining that the district is not getting a bad rap.
So I am maintaining that we do get a bad rep because we have elected officials who aren't doing their jobs. They're elected to do specific things. We're getting superintendents who come and they stay for 1.5 years to 2 years, and then there is full turnover at the district level. Full turnover. I've worked at the district. I've seen it time and time again. I've had at least 7 superintendents. It might be a little higher than that. I would say maybe around 9, closer to that. So I've seen the change. I've seen the change as a parent. I've seen it as an employee. Okay, 30-second mark. So I do think in order for us to have the reputation that we need leaders who can make it happen. We need a superintendent that can give us continuity. I think we need the elements that are going to make Stockton Unified an amazing district, and I think we're missing all of those elements at this current juncture.
Okay, so what you're maintaining is bad leadership.
Bad leadership, yes. Bad board members, yes. You can quote me on that, Ben.
Okay. All right. There's a $215 million bond measure on the ballot. What's that money earmarked for, and what should it be used for, Mr. Donaire?
So my understanding of Measure C is that the funds will go to improving school structures, building facilities, making sure that I think it's air conditioning, plumbing, things like that. What was the other part of the question?
What is it being used for, and what do you think it should be used for?
I think for those things, I think a lot of our facilities are outdated. I've seen a lot of schools lack in air conditioning, especially from this previous heat wave. Things like security measures, like fences. As I understand, with one of my schools, Cleveland Elementary, they just recently got fences, and it's been more than 30 years from the 1989 Cleveland School Elementary shooting. So things like that, making sure that our facilities are being maintained, updated, so that students, staff, are kept safe, not just in regards to any harms coming outside of the community, but also kept safe when it comes to how we're moving forward with this COVID-19 pandemic. Well-ventilated classrooms are going to help prevent us from spreading COVID-19.
Real quick follow-up for you. Do you support Measure C, and do you think it's the right time to be asking taxpayers for $215 million?
I think right now I'm still deciding. I still am doing my research and talking to people about how they feel about Measure C.
How do you feel about it?
Right now, I think, on paper it looks good, but I need to talk to, the labor unions who've endorsed me, the teachers and the school employees who've endorsed me to really, because they're like the people on the ground in these schools, so I just want to make sure that my vote for Measure C is well informed by the people who are in these facilities.
Okay. Ms. Stevens, do you think that this new board should be trusted with $215 million?
So, as I've been talking to voters, Measure C has been a hot topic. I have a lot of voters telling me that if this current board has the opportunity to make decisions about the funding, they're not willing to vote for it. So I think it's a tough situation. Students need the facilities, they need the upgrade. Teachers are having the same conversations about the needs, but voters are not having the same conversation, and it's because of the bad rep and the dysfunction that we have at the board level that's making voters not want to move Measure C. So I would say it is extremely touchy, and it's hard for us to really sell it when we understand what could happen. Our families and our students may never see the funding if the current board has to approve and move funds around.
Here's a quick follow-up for you on the bad rep. And I'm just gonna say this here: is it because of the bad rep, or is it because of the reality?
So I think it's because of the reality. I think we're getting what our board is allowing and what they're allowing to play out as far as education. We know that it needs to change. I think we have a board that they're not effective. We can look at the deficit that's coming down the pipelines. This is because the mismanagement that's happening. This is because our board members are voting on things that they haven't seen an MOU for. They haven't seen the plans for. They're just moving money around as they see fit. And I think it's because of their own personal gain and relationships.
Okay. Well, this has been very interesting and lively. We've been here almost an hour, so we're just going to wrap it up with 2-minute closing statements. And Mr. Donaire, we'll start with you.
For me, how I see my role as trustee, if I do get elected, I want to be an advocate and supporter of the public and the community, teachers, students, employees. I want to be there and be answerable to the issues that they bring to the table and listen. I want to make sure that there is a clear communication line between the community and the school district. I really want to see Stockton win, and the only way we can see Stockton win is if we, put in more care and more resources in the policies that will help these students succeed. I think if we invest in our youth, that is going to come back in tenfold for the city of Stockton. I'm really hoping that, the people participate in this election this year. And whether or not I win this election, I'm still going to be out here in the community making sure that the students, parents, and community members are, being as involved as possible. So I really hope that people engage in this voting election this year.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Stevens, 2-minute closing statement.
Sure. So I think it's unfortunate that I sit here with the space next to me and the incumbent of Stockton Unified is not here. I think it speaks to the current situation that happens at Stockton Unified when you have board members elected who are not doing their jobs efficiently. I would say Stockton Unified does need new leadership. I would say I'm the person who can make that happen for our students. And I'm just excited about the opportunity to connect and build new policy for Stockton Unified, its students, families, and staff.
Well, it's been interesting and entertaining, and I thank you both for your time. I certainly appreciate it, and hopefully the voters will appreciate it as well. Thank you.